Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric and series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and today I'm doing what a lot of you have been asking for a long time. I'm going to do a full review and setup guide for the GUN4IR on MiSTer FPGA. Because while this does take some setting up and there don't seem to be very many good guides out there, once you actually get it going, it is spectacular and it's my new favorite way to play Lightgun games on MiSTer without a CRT television involved. Before you get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, you got a Patreon link down below as well. But I will say, once you get the GUN4IR set up on MiSTer, it is seamless from there on, and it is absolutely the most accurate experience I've had playing Lightgun games in FPGA, outside of using an analog signal into a CRT TV with the original controllers. Now, I do want you guys to know this was sent to me by JayBee, the maker of the GUN4IR project, so I could do videos like this, but I wanted you to know that I did not buy it. Now, actually plugging this thing in is painlessly simple as far as the MiSTer is concerned. You plug the USB end into the USB port, and that's all you need to do to get it into your MiSTer. But there is more involved in this, and I did a standard video as well. But a lot of the setup that happens on MiSTer actually happens on a PC. If you take a look here into the actual GUN4IR software, you have to hit test screen, and it's going to show you where to place your IR sensors. It's going to give you a red dot where they all need to be. This does not get done via MiSTer FPGA. This gets done with a Windows laptop or a Macintosh laptop or PC or otherwise. But you need to set up the 4 IR sensor arrays at these dots so that the camera within the GUN4IR can pick all 4 of them up at once. Honestly, it only needs to see 3 to do its triangulation, but if you see 4, it's even better. Once you set this to a screen, it will keep that configuration when you move over to MiSTer. If you change screens and you move those IR sensors, you will have to do the calibration step in the next step one more time. But I will say you get plenty of wire with these IR sensors. They plug in via USB. I did not power them off the MiSTer. I powered them off an external power brick just because of the draw. It should be fine on MiSTer, but I just decided to go that direction. Now, I had the most luck with full screen. You can do content aspect ratio as well, but on the cores I tested on MiSTer, full screen made a better difference for me. And then you're going to go ahead and hit start calibration down here on your PC. You will see that it can see the sensors in the top left hand corner, all of those different tracking points, and then you then need to shoot the targets on screen so that the gun has its initial calibration for the screen you're using. Again, this doesn't happen on MiSTer, it happens on PC. And don't forget to need to put the license file within the folder if you do have the GUN4IR. So when you open up this software, the other thing you need to do is go into inputs and outputs and set a few things. Again, one more time, full screen is just what I had luck with. But you have to go into inputs and outputs and set the gun mode to joystick, and as far as off-screen reload is concerned, do not use shot in the corner. Disabled allowed me to use the GUN4IR for MiSTer. Auto reload on disabled did as well. There may be other combinations of this, but definitely do not use shoot in the corner to reload. It'll cause issues with the controller bindings, and you need to switch the gun mode over to joystick and not mouse and keyboard, which is what you would use for your PC. But speaking of keyboards, you're going to have to bring one for the initial GUN4IR setup with MiSTer, because you're going to have to actually calibrate the gun's aim within the operating system of MiSTer itself using the F10 key. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but you should always keep a keyboard near you just in case you need one for MiSTer. Now, from the main OS, apparently this may or may not be necessary based upon other notes I've seen. If you hit F10, you can now start tracking the gun sensor, and you're going to go ahead and shoot at the 4 corners of your screen. I should say the left and right hand side, the top and bottom side in the center. You will see as I move the gun around, that sensor in the actual gun, the camera, is going to pick up those IR sensors. It's going to track the space in real time. Basically, whatever you're pointing at with the barrel of the GUN4IR is going to register on the screen. Go ahead and pull the trigger at all 4 corners and you will be good to go. From there, you just need to try to define one button to create a configuration file for this. I did not have to configure every single button correctly in the main MiSTer operating system. I only had to do it within each individual core. And as I move over to direct capture, I'll show it to you one more time. You'll see the numbers stop scrolling. Once it stops scrolling, that means that it's not tracking in that cardinal direction. So just bring the aim of the GUN4IR up until you get those numbers moving towards the edge of the screen and pull the trigger. And I'll pop into the PlayStation core because it has my favorite Lightgun games. If you're ever wondering what type of mess of cables and computers it takes to capture these things, this is what it looks like. It'll be a lot cleaner for you, but this is the effort I go through just to point a GUN4IR at my screen. And while I am skipping ahead here, you will see that I have the crosshairs on, and I will have them on for the entirety of this example. Once you're in the core you want to use Gun4IR for, hit F10 again and go through the exact same process. I didn't do this to start and I found that the aim was not accurate. You want to do Lightgun calibration per core. I do not know if that's what's listed as what you're supposed to do, but that's where I had the luck. And you will see here that I'm losing a little bit of the aim at the top. That is because those sensors, that IR array was slightly pointed to the ceiling. I had to readjust it. So if you notice this happening, make sure that they're facing forward. I readjust and everything is totally fine. And this is what it looks like in real time in front of my television as well. You'll see that the crosshair in point blank versus the crosshair that the core puts over it is basically 1-to-1 accurate. This is basically pixel perfect here. As we actually get into a game of point blank, this is working extremely well. Now I would never actually play with the crosshair on, that takes all the fun out of a light gun game, but for a visual example you will see it on for the entirety of the video. Once you calibrate the guns, once you bind the controls within the core for the trigger, for reload and otherwise, you will be 100% fine, and I'll go over that calibration in just a moment for the buttons. And do be aware that on the PlayStation 1 core you have the show crosshairs on or off, and you need to select GunCon or Justifier depending on what your game uses. Now whatever game you're playing, the first thing you need to do before you actually play it is go into bind controls. You can skip everything, but just pay attention to the screen when it talks about the buttons for GunCon. Robert, the core developer, has put information in there as to which one is which, so when you're doing this, make sure you pay attention. You'll see gunfire there. That is where you're going to pull the Gun4IR trigger. If you get this wrong, just go ahead and rebind your controls again. You can do it until you are blue in the face. It doesn't matter, just make sure you get it right once and you'll be totally fine. As we move into Time Crisis here with the crosshair on, this is dead on the money accurate. Everything is working. I can turn the crosshair off and hit the target I want so often. This is getting extremely close to playing on a CRT television, and honestly it's probably 1-to-1 or very close to it. It's just that I've been playing these games for like 2.5 decades on a CRT TV versus LCD, so I'm still getting used to this myself. I did do that GunCon 3 tutorial with those IR lighthouses, and while that was good, Gun4IR is just 100% better as far as an experience is concerned. That's because it's using a lot better tracking system with a lot more modern hardware than what came out during the PlayStation 3 era. But if I can play Time Crisis and have a good time on my LCD television with a Gun4IR, then I can give it my stamp of approval. Now make sure you do everything in this tutorial. If you skip steps, you're going to end up with something that does not work. You have to start on the PC like I showed you. You need to calibrate your screen on the PC like I showed you. You need to put the appropriate settings on like I showed you. And in every single game, you need to make sure you've selected the right controller type. We're playing a different game now, Crypt Killer, so we need to be on Justifier, not on GunCon, because there's more than one controller that can work for the PlayStation 1 when it comes to light gun games. But once you get this all set up, it should be quick pick up and play. It's a little bit of work at the beginning, but the result ends up being absolutely spectacular. And for that reason and that reason alone, I think Gun4IR is absolutely worth it. I love Crypt Killer. I own an arcade board. I own the PlayStation 1 version and the Sega Saturn version. And now, honestly, I'll probably play on MiSTer FPGA with the Gun4IR because it saves me a lot of setup time. One other thing you're going to want to do, and I already showed you in the GunCon games, but can be a little bit trickier in the other games, is you want to make sure that you use the game's internal calibration menu as well to get the best aiming. In something like Crypt Killer, you hit pause and reload, and it's going to bring up this calibration menu. You'll see here when I first start the game, it is slightly off alignment, so I need to go and calibrate it. You go ahead and hit the calibration button again. Take one pull with your crosshair on, make sure everything is lined up, then you can turn your crosshair back off and you know your aiming is accurate. But every single game that I threw at this thing just worked once the setup was complete. But again, I'm going to warn you because I know some people do this. Do not skip around in this video. If you make one wrong settings move in the Gun4IR application for Windows or Mac and you don't set it correctly, MiSTer is just not going to recognize all or some of your Gun4IR. This is the type of thing, follow the directions from start to finish in the order in which I showed them to you, and it will work. If you skip anything, you're not going to have this success. But once you get this thing going, it is just absolutely outstanding. I've used my Gun4IR on MAME, I've used it for different emulators on my PC, I've used it for MiSTer FPGA, and everywhere I've utilized this thing, it has been the best device I've used if I'm not using the original controllers on a CRT television. And even with that, this thing is like 99.8% as good as a PVM with a raster draw on it. But if you have any issues, leave me a comment down below and I'll try to help. But short of that, grab a Gun4IR and start shooting. See you next time. Bye bye.